my children will go to a camp or something like that for holiday, and after normally 3 weeks they will be returned. And in fact, no, they wait, and after 1 month, 2 months, and in fact their children disappear. Some children are over there for years, for months, but for years as well. I couldn't even imagine a child being like that, abducted, and being in another country, in another place, but then said, okay, I don't want to be adopted because it was adopted by a family. And he said, no, it's not my family. So we have Ukrainian children that fight their brother. First of all, I'm Brigitte, and I'm Belgian. And in fact, before I'm retired now, but before I was working in in a medical profession. So as I retired, I said, okay, I would like to make something useful. I was aware of what happened in the world, and I saw the conflict in Ukraine. I read, it was on internet, I read a man called Jean-Marc Adolphe, and it's an investigative journalist, and he discovered as soon as March 22, there were a lot of children abducted by Russians, and we start from that point, and then they made, I wasn't there at that time, but they made an association called Pour l'Ukraine, leur liberté et la nôtre, so for Ukraine, their liberty and ours. It's a very regular association, a very huge association with now a good reputation. And I arrived in the association on September 22 because I was really touched by the children. It was very important things for me, really touching, and I couldn't even imagine a child being like that, abducted, and being in another country, in another place. They start, in fact, from the beginning, so from 14, 15, 16, but in a very small scale, they said. Only from orphanages, from institutions, because there are a lot of children in Ukraine that are in that kind of institution because they have to wait for surgery or things like this, and it's difficult for the parents to stay there in a hotel not working. So they let their children in institution before the surgery. So the soldiers arrived and said, okay, with of course the order of Vladimir Putin, arrived and took all those children. Because in fact, first of all, I have to put a certain context around that. The obsession of Vladimir Putin is to have an empire, and an empire without anybody inside is not an empire. So he would like to have a lot of other people, and most of them, of course, from Slavic. And he said, okay, Ukraine was one of the Soviet, so now if we have to have an empire like we had before, we are going to, in Ukraine.
Мы считаем себя вправе применять наше оружие против военных объектов тех стран, которые позволяют применять свое оружие против наших объектов.
They arrived, and of course they arrived from Crimea, and you know that better than me, from Crimea in Donbass, so it was the first abduction of children from those parts. If you could visit those parts in that time, you can see all the orphanages and this kind of institution empty. Afterwards, in 22, when you have the very large aggression, then of course it takes another step, because they speak about a large, in fact, maybe we can call it industrial abduction, because they have already all the technique for the children to take it to Russia. In fact, Vladimir Putin decided to have commissioner for children, and he starts from 28. so 28. And in fact, the main commissioner now is Maria Lvova-Belova, and she received, as Putin, she received a mandate from the ICP due to this action. She started, in fact, it's a very clever woman, very clever, because she started before being a commissioner. She started to have an association called Blagovest, and Blagovest was more like a pocket of money, because money arrived from the church and arrived also from donation directly from Vladimir Putin inside that. And from this Blagovet, she made already 3 houses for handicapped person, for children who has also an handicap from Russia and then from Ukraine. And with those 3 houses, it was really the beginning of it. It was like a rehearsal, in fact, of everything she will do afterwards. My job is to know exactly where the children arrive in Russia, from which part in Ukraine. I try to follow one child personally, but it was very difficult, of course, to have all the travel of this child. And in fact, the most documentation we have was about Mariupol and Kherson. Yesterday I was on the site of the investigation. This is the first he has done, the first article about the investigation journalist, another one. This is from the think tank of European. Then I have found the study they have done in 23 about the Ukrainian. And then this is other article. This is from iStories. And you see the kids, and then I try to recognize the kids and to see into the text. Okay, this is Galina, her brother is Alexander, and then where I found that, and then I have my file here. Yellow is for things that I have to resolve. This is part of the Maria Belova, this is her, Maria Belova article. This is one from the Yale School Laboratory, and this is from February, I think. February 23. Then I have here other files. This is all about Russia. I have map to find in which oblast it is, children and so on. This is about Ukraine, and this is the file that I finished about all the law and all those things. And I went to have the decree exactly done by the president, and all the world is in it to change the things and all the person involved. And this is the code of familia, also with different kind of things. I've already, this is the family, and I try always to find as much as possible, you know, here of reference, because there is no reason to say something without references. The parents said, they said my children will go to a camp or something like that for holiday, and after normally 3 weeks they will be returned. And in fact, no, they wait, and after 1 month, 2 months, and in fact their children disappear, and so they complain at the government in Ukraine, and this is really the number that we are really sure, and we are around only 22,000 only. But I'm sure they will more than this, because there are a lot of places in Ukraine to take all the children, and then so many places in Russia. There are, for instance, if I take the situation in Mariupol, they said, okay, we're going to have an arrangement with the Red Cross. And first of all, we said, okay, this is the International Red Cross, and we are confident in that kind of organization. And they made a humanitarian corridor, and then you can see all the cars with the name of children on the car. Of course, all the cars made a different curve, I would say, and not going into the free Ukraine, but up to the temporary, I like that name, temporary occupied territory. And they arrived over there, and over there they have a filtration camp consisting of at least 3 tents, one for the men, one for the women, and one for the children. The one for the men, you can imagine all the interrogative and questions, and see if they have tattoos or if they have on the paper something linked to the soldier to the army and so on. For one father of 3 children, they arrived at that camp. The father was took up to Orlevnivka, and it was a famous prison, not with a very good reputation. And they took the 3 children into buses. And they said to the parents, yes, it's better like this because it's difficult for the children to remain in the territory with all the Ukrainian bombs, the Ukrainian very bad fighters and all those kind of propaganda. The woman said, yes, this is better for my children to go there and to have a camp and to have a good place to be and to have a kind of relief without all these horrible things of the war. So the mother said, yes, it's okay. The one of Mariupol then arrived first of all in Donetsk, in the main hospital of Donetsk, with a lot of other children. It was the traumatic hospital of Donetsk. They stay there for a certain time because they have to check the medical situation of the kids, because it was difficult, of course, to abduct problem with a child. And then they arrived, for some part, they arrived in Tangarog, or near Tangarog, in another filtration camp, Bezineme. And Bezineme is on Azov Sea. And then in Bezizeme, it's also a filtration camp, but for children then. For adults also, but main for children. Then they can take either the train in Tangarog up to somewhere in Russia, but most of the time they go to Rostov, and in Rostov they took the plane up to Moscow. In Moscow, they are welcomed by Vorobyov, who is the governor of Moscow, from the city, but of the oblast of Moscow. And then they arrived, for that family, the 3 children arrived in Polyani. Polyani was one of the first camps in Russia for the children, and it was really well organized, what I can call a concentration camp, with very important fences around, with a lot of soldiers and all those kind. And then inside, of course, they have to speak Russian, they have to sing the Russian anthem, they have to know the Russian history. And the propaganda said, oh no, your parents don't ask you anymore, there is not a problem, your country is under the war of Ukraine, and soldier, it's very bad for you, it's the best place to be in Russia, and blah 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 blah, things like that. And of course it was quite difficult for children to understand that and to say, my parents doesn't want me anymore. That's something really, really strong for the kids. So most of the time they took kids from babies, it was a case in Kherson, up to 14 years old. And why 14 years old? Because it puzzled me a little, because I said, why 14 and not 13 and not 17? And it was because the family code said that, says, because it's always the case, says that from the birth up to 14, the parents can choose either the name, the birthplace, and the date. It will be almost impossible for the parents to know exactly where their children are, because they haven't the name. And so now, for that problem, they made a DNA bank in Ukraine, because this is the only way to recognize and to prove this is my children. You can consider the DNA, it matches, so this is my children. And in that way, of course, it's difficult to say no, because they have the proof, then it is the children. Here you can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things. This is, for instance, Polyani. So I try to find it, where is it, in which oblast. This is the oblast of Moscow. And then I try to find, going with Google Earth to find the property, and then with other pictures I try to figure out who are the dead, and then I prove from the association, because you have the little heart, and the little heart is the symbol of this association into the hand of children. At least, for my research, at least 45, 60 different camps in Russia. And in Polyani, they decide, okay, this part is good for adoption. So each kid has to make a little movie presenting him, saying, okay, I love football, and I'm good at school, or I'm bad at school, and all those things, and to speak about them. And then they have a little movie, and they put this movie with some summary of the kids beside to Yandex. Yandex, it's a very important database on internet. In fact, there are some investigator journalists and also some free journalists from OSINT and Molfar and Bellingcat and all those institutions who tried to phone that organization, and they said, oh, we are parents and we would like to adopt a child, how it works, and so on and so on. And so she received a quite small explanation, and they said, okay, but you have to go to that person, and that you will have all the things that you have to do to have those child. You have the invasion in February. In May, there is a quite difficult situation, because due to the law you have in Russia, Magnitsky law, it was impossible at that time to adopt a foreign child in Russia. Maria Lvova-Belova, she has all the powers, she's a plenipotentiary person, and she went to Vladimir Putin and she discussed with him, and he decided in May, okay, we're going to change the constitution and we're going to change the family code and all those things, that it will be easier and quicker to adopt a child, because we changed the possibility of having the Russian nationality. They made that, and it was just like this, and they arrived by full plane for instance, in Siberia. They're coming from the south of Mariupol and for the south of Ukraine, and they arrive in Siberia. So could you imagine for the children to be like this? And most of the time we have documentation with the child arriving at the airport, and then each child receives a bear. The bear is the symbol of Russia, so it's really important also to receive the bear. And most of the time we saw also Maria Lvova-Belova waiting for those children and welcome there, and taking the children and make a lot of fuss, and you will be very good here, and so on and so on and so on. They took children so up to 14 to change the name. But after that, they have children from 14 up to 17, not 18, because 18 they were adult, so it's impossible to oblige an adult to do that. And most of the time those teens was kind of rebel, like, we don't want to sing the Russian anthem, we don't want to learn all those things from Russia. My country is Ukraine and I would like to stay like Ukraine. And so Maria Lvova-Belova imagined another association, singing, okay, we have to take care of that rebel teenagers, so they create an association only for teenagers called Smizna. She started in the Tots, temporary occupied territory, in LPR and DNR, and after with Zaporizhzhia and Crimea, of course, but not really in Crimea. In Crimea there is just one spot, and they call it re-education camp. And the most tough re-education camp is in Chechnya. I have this also, this is from Molfar. This is the camp in Chechnya, mountain stream. And you see here I have all the references. And this is my work now. This is the participation with the politic of the thoughts. And here it's all the person, because this is another association, we are together. This is all from the same Geography for Goods. It's also another association. All Russian Students Corps is an association. And the teenager arrived over there, and of course they have to undergo a lot of disciplinary action, and even they have to learn military. So they learn how to use a gun, how to take the gun apart and then to put all together, and all things about the gun. They also have visits of veterans, and the veterans say, okay, this is the army, and the Russian army is very good, and all those things. And they have a really important way to make it really obey to the rules and obey to they want to have from their children, because as you can imagine, from 14 up to now there are a lot of kids having 18. So when they have 18, of course they can be in the Russian army. So we have Ukrainian children that fight their brother. This is a pyramid of obligation. At the top, you have Maria Lvova-Belova directly under Putin. And then there is another woman. It's Anna Kuznetsova. She was the previous commissioner, and she is now in the Duma, in charge of the children. She can make law and all those things that Putin asked her to do it. And then under you have Maria Lvova-Belova, and then under her you have different kinds of people responding into the hand of children. This association, she arrived, for instance, in LPR, and she was received by the governor and all those people in the so-called Lugansk Oblast of Russia. And she said, okay, we have certain law, and you have to respect that law in the oblast. And of course, for the governor of it, it's quite easy to make this law respected. They can ask for the train, they can ask for the plane, they can ask for everything, because they have the power of it. And it's the same in Donetsk Oblast, and it's the same in Crimea. In Crimea, they use, in fact, a lot of very beautiful hotels. They have beautiful places to welcome the child. But of course, the children they don't have a room only for them. They are 10 or 15 in the same room in a very bad condition, and Amnesty International had already made a file about that. It was around 18 or 19, something like that, so before 22. They said that, for instance, for the baby, they avoid to give some drink too often, because it means that they have to change the diapers. So they prefer not to serve drink or milk or things like that the kids needs, of course, for the babies. So some try one Bodan, and Bodan said, okay, I don't want to be adopted, because it was adopted by a family. And he said, no, it's not my family, it's not my brother, it's not my father, I have it, and it's not my family. He took the opportunity to escape that family. I don't know how, maybe they have a right or something like that, because there is an important resistance in Russia. So the resistance helped him to arrive at the Belarusian, the border, by the mountain, by the campaign, and by all those things, and he arrived in Ukraine to feast in 18th anniversary. So this is really important, because at 18 he will be in the army. And it was that for that reason, and for the one that he has crossed all those borders, he succeeded. It was just an article about a child, but also an article to explain what happened, because still now it's difficult for people, even in Europe, to understand the problem. And we have now files made by the Yale Laboratory Institute from United States. They have a very good documentation from satellite and all those things. And unfortunately, the budget was finished due to the Trump Association, but they try to continue their research. We have Eurojust, European Government Association, of course the ICP, and it's still working for the ICP, and we have also other files made by the Wallenberg Association. This is a Canadian association. And so my job is to take information from articles, from interview, and put half of the part, I would say, were adopted. Most of them, yes, half of the part. Then you have other putting in other orphanages, but Russian orphanages, of course, and those in curatelle. And in curatelle, there are a lot of families that which have a lot of children, so they receive a lot of money from the government. And so it's interesting for them, speaking of money, to have a lot of children. And we know a family of 8 children. For instance, Maria Lova-Belova has 5 children of her own, and she adopted 9 children. And one from Mariupol, Philip, and Philip is the 10th of children. Could you imagine a woman with so many children making all what she did, and she continued to do, to take care of all the institutions, to take care that the governance obey the law that she put in practice, to visit the orphanages, to visit the camps, to be sure that everything is done exactly how she would like to make it, and all those things. And of course she received money for that. Another part very important is it's why Putin chose Maria Lova-Belova, because she was it's a really Orthodox person, and for Putin it's important to be to follow the tradition, and of course the church is one of the most traditional institutions. So the husband of Maria Lova-Belova was a priest. The husband of Kuznetsova was a priest, and all the people inside the office, most of them during the time of Kuznetsova, were priests. Of course, she has a very often conversation with Kirill, of course. They made also very important forum. They call it international forum, but they are only Russia. It's kind of ecumenic forum with the Orthodoxy, with also the Muslims, because they realize that there is an important Muslims community in the south of Russia. And Muslims is also important because they have also very strict tradition for their children. So it's not difficult to make the children obey to that tradition. It's all those things that makes my research, and all those things that I would like to put energy and all my heart, because I couldn't imagine so many children, private of their children, private of their own country, from their own people, from their own language, because they have to change language. Even they can speak Ukrainian together, because they were together, they were Ukrainian together, but they can't speak Ukrainian. Otherwise they can put aside and have punition aside and say, okay, you have to know the anthem of Russia, and until there you be alone in a room and you have to repeat the anthem. In fact, the government of Ukraine made a it was a decision from the president. It's United 24. He decided with that organization, which has different departments, and one department is for the kids, and with the help of mediation country, they can have back some children. And those children, of course, have very important disturbing psychological symptom, post-traumatic symptom and all those kind of things. So it will be difficult afterwards to put their children inside the society, inside the Ukrainian society. Some children are over there for years, for months, but for years as well. So they're really brainwashed. Really brainwashed. That's kind of awful things, awful. And we couldn't even imagine that. We couldn't. It's something. Now we have the proof. It's a genocide, because they would like to erase the Ukrainian. They really would like to have it, because they have also other things. We have the spoliation of the culture, we have the demolishing of everything, we have the looting in museum, we have all those things. But for me, my part, it's about the children.